And she refused to wear an LGBTQ pride jersey. Now, she wasn't trying to make waves. She wasn't trying to create animosity amongst her fellow teammates. She was just like, this is contrary to my faith, and I don't want to wear this. Well, she was sidelined, and they did re-sign her, praise be to God. But they had to apologize for re-signing her after. Yeah, apparently she's a pretty good athlete, so they wanted her on the team, but yet they wanted their cake and eat it too by still punishing her for her openly Christian behavior, which is just one more story in a sea of stories recently of women's sports being fully inundated with this woke ideology. And so we're hoping to have a conversation with Samantha Kelley. Can you hear me now, Samantha?
I can. Can you hear me?
Praise be to God. There you are. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you a start question here. Why do you think women's sports are under full assault? What has women's sports done to deserve this kind of treatment?
Joe, I asked myself that same question, but I think, overall in the culture, we have an assault on women. We have an assault on those who can give life, right? And so in a very particular way, I think, because sport has been historically male and women have kind of come forward in good ways and in not so good ways. We look at the feminist movement. I think there's just a lot of confusion today about what it means to be a woman. And that coupled with sport being predominantly male in the past leads to just overall confusion, I think.
You know, I was reading your press release, and you had this line that says, recent statistics indicate that nearly 30% of today's female collegiate athletes identify as gay, and 62% struggle with disordered eating. I've been very critical of colleges and college systems. They're fantastic places to become atheists or worse. So why would there be such a culture that would take so many young women and produce these kinds of statistics?
Yeah, it's the pressure that they face. They are under so much pressure to perform, to win, to be liked. And it's kind of like this play hard, party hard mentality. So, they're under all this pressure. And then the way that they release that is in unhealthy relationships, in trying to manipulate and control their eating, because of the standards that either their coaches have created, their parents have created, their schools have created. And then it's just this really toxic culture that leads to a lot of these same-sex attraction issues.
So how do young women who love sports, want to play sports, how do they survive in these environments?
Yeah, hopefully they have somebody that's why Fierce Athlete exists, just to tell them that you're more than your performance. You're more than an athlete. You're so much more than that. First and foremost, before anything you do or anything you say or anybody else's opinion of you, you're a daughter of God, period. And God just loves you for you. And that I've found with the women I've worked with just creates this freedom to embrace who they are, and they don't feel like they have to prove themselves or manipulate themselves in a certain way, but they have the freedom to know who they are and then return to their sport and play in that freedom.
Kind of reminds me, I see some parallels here to the corruption and decay of society through pornography addiction, in the sense that I've shared this story a number of times on this program before, but I read an article many years ago from a feminist who in the 60s and 70s was big into protesting and big into the sexual revolution, burned her bra, the whole darn thing. And then many decades later, as an elder woman, she decided to travel America and interview young people on college campuses to see what was the effect of her and her colleagues in their sexual revolution. And what she discovered scared her. She discovered that, I would say, she wouldn't say it, but the devil got a 2-for-1 special on the deal. Young men were addicted to porn, thus fantasy, and didn't want real relationships with girls, because they preferred their fantasy over reality. And then the young women, desperate for attention, were putting themselves in harmful, disordinate situations in order to try to attract and have some attention from these young males. And the result was a total chaos within their private social lives. I see that there's an overlap here. It seems like what you said was there was a lot of pressure on these women to perform, to be a certain way, to fit in, to go along, and it seems like the devil's still getting his 2-for-1 special.
Yeah, because I think you see both sides of the spectrum. I have a friend who's a Division I coach, and I was telling her about Fierce, and she said to me, "My girls today, they either feel like they have to hook up with men, or they have to be in a relationship with a woman." She goes, "They literally don't know that there's a third way." And it struck me, and I was like, oh my goodness, like that is what the culture is saying. And you see women almost compensate. Well, in certain sports, women are considered more masculine. And so you see them compensating, trying to dress in a certain way to prove that they're feminine, or trying to hook up with men. And then the other side, you see a lot of women who have been wounded by men. And so they are turning towards other women for that affection. I mean, there's a lot of reasons behind all of that, but yeah, you see this kind of dichotomy that's been created, and they don't know that there's just this path of freedom and chastity in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys, especially when WNBA started, they were like, "Wait, why? Why are we doing this? Like, it doesn't seem natural. Like, it's not a problem for women to play basketball, but it seemed like they were trying too hard to be like the guys." Would you see it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the WNBA creates a great opportunity for women. Professional sports, great opportunity for women. But you're right in that women, and this, since Title IX, this has kind of been the struggle with women coming on, being able to play sports is, well, they wanted to beat the men. They wanted to be like the men and then be better than the men. We saw this with Billie Jean King. And so, that's evolved to women kind of rejecting their femininity and being more masculine. I think you do see it, unfortunately, most in the WNBA. Not everybody, though. And that's why we exist. We're trying to really reclaim that femininity, that you can be intense, but you can't divorce that from your natural, tender, motherly side that you have.
How hard is it to strike that balance?
Oh, it's tough. It really is tough. Yeah. I love how you have Our Lady of Guadalupe in your background. I have her in mine. And we use her as our model. I mean, she crushes the head of Satan. She's totally intense and awesome. And yet she's the most tender woman that ever lived. And so finding that balance and using her as our model and asking her for just her blessing, I think is what we're trying to do.
I mean, as a kid, I couldn't have imagined this day, to be honest with you, Samantha Kelley. I mean, like, no one ever questioned, like, someday there's going to be guys to pretend to be girls and dominate those sports and not even, like, be ashamed of themselves in the result. Like, it's just bizarre. Like, there was a story, a week ago about some 30-year-old skater pretending to be a woman dominating teenage skateboarding. It's like, have you no shame at all? I'm not even a glimmer. I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't know how old you are, but I think you grew up more into this woke culture than I have. How do you see it?
Oh, it enrages me. I really have to check myself and pray for these individuals, but it's just not fair, and that's the theme. I mean, it's one of the most prevalent conversations I have with other female athletes. I was talking to a 15-year-old the other day, and she kind of brought it up, and she just said, "It makes me feel like I don't matter." And like, that's the opposite of what sport is supposed to do. And so, yeah, it breaks my heart. I mean, I've seen it coming for a few years, unfortunately, obviously not when I was playing sports. And I will say there are some bright spots, some international federations. For example, the International Federation of Swimming has banned transgender swimmers. But the trickle down effect to the NCAA, that's going to take some time, though it shouldn't. So there are some bright spots, but yeah, it's really frustrating.
That's really interesting, because I was just thinking while you were saying that the problem here is that this is it's so clearly wrong. It's so clearly wrong that a man is not a woman is not a man. And the fact that that's even a controversial statement is absolutely bizarro world. So my question is, and my concern is, why are the parents And the girls, especially at the college level, but I mean, even at the high school level, people always talk about, encouraging women to stand up, encouraging women to be strong leaders, and so on and so forth. Why are we not seeing women standing up against this? And even more so, why are we not seeing parents stand up and taking their kids out and saying, I'm not letting my daughter compete if they're going to be allowing men into these sports? Why are we not seeing almost any kind of reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fear, right? I mean, that's the whole problem in today's society. It's just this cancel culture, right? There's a fear that they're going to be persecuted. I think more people than express it are not okay with it. You do have, like at UPenn, for example, with the swimmer, you did have a lot of the girls and parents actually file a lawsuit, but that's not going to be covered. And I think there is a fear of persecution. Now, on the other end, there is a lack of understanding of, obviously, that men are men and women are women. And there's this, well, you do you, and I need to love you for that kind of mentality out there. But, my hope is that people are starting to wake up, because the majority of people I talk to are definitely not okay with this. And there's a lot of lawyers out there doing some good work with the Save Women's Sports Act, for example, to really fight this.
But the thing about this, from my perspective, is that this could all be solved if the parents just said, you know what, we're just not going to let our daughters compete in the sports if they're going to allow this. And overnight, everything would change, because then the sport would be dead if all the sports would just stop. Because I can't imagine, you said that most of the parents, are not supportive. I would be surprised if there was even 1% of the people who are actually supportive. I can understand the majority being scared and don't want to say anything because they don't want to be called bigots or be, like you said, canceled. It's amazing because they say they're the oppressed group, yet they're the ones oppressing everyone else. And what do you think? What would you say to a parent who has a daughter in a program where this is happening?
Yeah, I mean, I would say have the courage to pull your kid out. Now, the sad part is the majority of people aren't going to do that. I would find a new team, a new league. I think that's something that these particular parents have to do. I mean, I think it speaks to the greater almost idolatry of the sports culture. I love sports. I'm an athlete. However, for many people, sport is life. Like, Sundays are meant for football. My kid, and it's oftentimes parent driven, my kid is going to be a Division I scholarship athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And that is disordered, right? Because I tell parents this all the time, like, make sure it's just not about you. Make sure it's about your kid and what they actually want to do. And there's a balance there. Like, my dad pushed me in the right way, but at the end of the day, it was always my decision. And so, yeah, I don't know that they'll be backing out, but I would advise parents to just find a new team, a new coach, a new league. Even there's a lot out there that you can find.
But Samantha, something you just said a minute ago. You kind of mentioned something like we have to love these people, and it's true. We have to love them. We have to have charity for these people. But I think this is a common thread in these sorts of conversations, is the language gets hijacked. And so now we're at a point where women are effectively being eliminated from the language, right? I mean, you look at the way that people say, instead of saying women, they say, well, woman actually includes people who identify as birthing persons and all of these sorts of things. What do you think about this language that's being used? Is that maybe a starting point for people to fight back against this and just take back some of the terms here, define terms?
Yeah, I mean, the other side does a great job of manipulating language, right? And love is one of the primary ones. Like, we're called to love everybody. Well, that's, for me, that definition of love is tolerance, right? And people don't need to be tolerated. They actually need to be loved. And love is willing the good of the other. It's love and truth together. So yeah, I think that, we can, in a proper way, try to reclaim some of those words. I'm sticking by female women's athletics for the true definition of what that means. And, I won't be changing my language anytime soon, for sure.
Can we talk about dress code a little bit here? Bring this into the conversation. It's always boggled my mind why some female sports have such revealing, outfits, jerseys, shorts, this kind of thing. Like college whiz. I wouldn't take my kids to a Hooters or a Twin Peaks. I wouldn't go there myself, for crying out loud. But yet we can go to an athletics game where these women are asked and required to wear the most revealing attire ever. That's got to be somewhat humiliating, I would argue, for women. How would you see it?
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is if that equipment, right, is helping them perform their sport, then okay. But if the purpose is to reveal, to maybe over-sexualize women's sports in order to get more fans, that's definitely something that exists, then it's not okay. For example, women's sand volleyball, they're wearing bikinis. And there were girls, I think it was in the last Olympics maybe, that were fined because they refused to wear bikini bottoms. I think they had shorts on because they said that it was more comfortable for them. They were able to perform better, and they were actually fined for it. I think that's where it gets a little bit ridiculous. And again, who are the people making those decisions? I don't know the answer to that. My assumption would be men. Or women that are okay with kind of being provocative. But you're right. I think it can distract, and things are getting shorter and tighter than when I played. It can distract from and over-sexualize these women.
So, okay, let's talk about Fierce Athlete. FierceAthlete.org is your website. Exactly what do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, so our mission is to promote true identity and femininity, kind of everything we've been talking about in female athletics based on the teachings of the church and theology of the body. So our widest resources, we have a podcast, and then I travel the country speaking, leading different retreats for athletes and teams and schools, and then also strength and conditioning clinics. So we're actually working out together, and then we're kind of having theology of the body themed talks. And then I also mentor individuals and coach them one-on-one, everywhere from high school all the way up through pro athletes. Those are the kind of things we're doing now.
What do you see as the number one challenge to those people that you're mentoring?
Oh, I think it comes back to just identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know who they are as daughters of God. And the result of that is all the issues, depression, eating disorders, same-sex attraction, promiscuity that we see. But we have to first and foremost start with you're just loved as you are.
A minute ago we were touching on this parents and the athletics culture that they can be kind of an extreme. I've seen this, parents that take their kids, their 7-day-a-week training, games, touring. I mean, they go to camps, clinics, they hire professional coaches to give them the top. I mean, and this is when they're not even in high school. And so it can get very intense. But you got a scenario in which we've sort of clearly communicated in this segment that it's a very toxic culture. How do you help these kids and their parents understand that when it comes down to making a choice, heaven is the only real choice, even if it means giving up what they love most?
Yeah, I mean, you have to bring them back to the truth of the faith and the primacy of God. I think there's a lot of ways that you can honor God in your sport. And so take the focus off of me, I need to achieve this level versus this is a gift that I have and I can offer it back to the Lord. And I think that in the hearts of these women provides a balance. In terms of parents, it's challenging them. It's challenging them to really think about why they're pushing their kid this far. And encouraging them to make sure that faith is primary, right? You're traveling on the weekends. We always found a mass on Sundays. That's the beauty of our faith. And so making sure that, faith is primary.
Well, we are getting down to the wire here. FierceAthlete.org is the website. Samantha Kelley, we're grateful for your time today setting this up and talking about this very difficult subject. Golly whiz, I wish and pray that more athletes will stand up like Miss Daniels did in the soccer team. Would you encourage athletes to, say, put their foot down, even if it meant their career?
Yeah, and it's hard because every major college has a Pride Day, and you see a lot of a lot of kids feel pressured, like, well, am I going to not start? But I think Jaylene's a perfect example that you have to say, stand up in the face of truth.
All right. Praise be to God. Samantha Kelley, fierceathlete.org is the website, fierceathlete.org. God bless you, Miss Kelley. Have a great day. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, praise be to God. That's going to do it for hour number 1. If you can and you're able to join us in the second hour, we'd love to have you, of course. Brent Haynes, attorney, Catholic speaker, and activist, is going to be on to talk about Donald Trump getting raided. What's that about? All that coming up next and more. Go to grnonline.com/CD.